They say you shouldn't go to your ex-lover's wedding, especially when you're 4 months pregnant with his child, especially when he's a powerful man who could hurt you for showing up uninvited. But I went anyway, because I'm an idiot, because my heart wouldn't listen to reason, because I needed to see him one last time before I disappeared forever. I shouldn't have worn this black dress that barely hid my growing bump. I shouldn't have slipped past security using the old codes he never changed. I shouldn't have stood in the back of that cathedral, watching the only man I've ever loved promise forever to someone else. But I did. And when his steel gray eyes found mine across that crowded room, when recognition and shock flooded his face, when I felt our baby kick for the very first time, everything went black. The cathedral was more beautiful than I'd imagined. White roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers catching the afternoon light, 300 guests dressed in designer clothes, each one radiating power and influence. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a display of wealth and status. The Vittorio family didn't do anything small. And there he was, Dante Vittorio, 6'3" of lethal grace in a custom Italian suit. Dark hair slicked back. That sharp jawline I used to trace with my fingers. Those broad shoulders I used to cling to when the nightmares came. My alpha. Except he wasn't mine anymore. He was hers. I pressed myself against the marble pillar, one hand instinctively going to my stomach. The bump wasn't huge yet, but it was there. A secret I'd been carrying alone for 4 months. A secret that was getting harder to hide every single day. A server whispered, "Are you okay, miss?" "I'm fine," I lied, my voice barely audible over the string quartet playing something classical and haunting. But I wasn't fine. I was dying inside. Let me take you back. Back to when everything was different. Back to when I still believed in fairy tales and happy endings. My name is Elias Reed, and I'm an Omega in a world that doesn't value people like me. No family. No pack. Just a kid who aged out of foster care and learned to survive on the streets of Chicago. I was working 3 jobs just to afford a studio. Apartment in the worst part of town. Coffee shop mornings. Library afternoons. Bar nights. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. That's where I met him. Dante walked into Monty's bar on a freezing December night. Bruised knuckles and intensity in his eyes. His men flanked him, 8 guys in black suits, all alert, all scanning the room like they owned it. Because they did. Everyone knew the Vittorios controlled the South Side. Everyone knew you didn't mess with them. Everyone knew Dante Vittorio was the most dangerous man in the city. Everyone except me, apparently. "You're bleeding on my clean floor," I said, tossing him a bar towel. His men reached for their sides. Dante held up one hand, stopping them. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and something shifted in those gray eyes. "What's your name? Omega?" My breath caught. Most alphas didn't ask. They commanded. They took. But there was something different about the way he said it. Curious. Almost gentle. Elias, Elias. He tested my name like it was something precious. "I'm Dante. I know who you are. And you're not afraid." I shrugged, refilling someone's whiskey. Should I be? He smiled then. Actually smiled. And it transformed his entire face from terrifying to devastating. Most people are. I'm not most people, and that was the truth. I'd survived things that would break most Omegas. An abusive foster home, homelessness, heat cycles alone with no one to help me. I'd learned that the only person I could rely on was myself. But something about Dante made me want to trust again. He came back the next night. And the night after that. And the night after that. Always alone. Always sitting at the end of the bar. Always watching me with those intense gray eyes that seemed to see straight through every wall I'd built. We talked. About everything and nothing. About his childhood in Sicily. About my years in foster care. About books and music and the weight of responsibility. "Why do you work 3 jobs?" he asked one night. "Because I need the money." "For what?" "College." I laughed bitterly. Stupid dream, right? An Omega like me, thinking I could be more than someone's convenience. His jaw clenched. "It's not stupid. And you're not anyone's convenience, Elias. You're what?" He looked at me like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. Extraordinary. No one had ever called me that before. It happened 3 weeks after we met. I went into heat at the worst possible time, middle of my shift, surrounded by alphas. No suppressants, because I couldn't afford them that month. The pain hit me like a freight train. The fever, the need, the desperate, aching emptiness that made me want to cry. I barely made it to the storage room before I collapsed. That's where Dante found me. Elias, his voice was rough, strained. I could smell his alpha pheromones responding to my heat. Could see the way his hands clenched into fists as he fought for control. "Leave," I gasped. "Please, I can't. You need to go." "I'm not leaving you like this. Dante, do you trust me?" I should have said no. Should have protected myself. Should have remembered that alphas always take what they want. But this was Dante. Yes, he gathered me into his arms like I weighed nothing, carrying me out the back exit to his car. His men didn't say a word as he put me in the passenger seat, his jacket wrapped around my shaking body. "Where are we going?" I whispered. "Somewhere safe." He took me to a penthouse I didn't know he owned. Fed me. Gave me suppressants from his private stock. Sat with me through the worst of it, holding my hand, stroking my hair, telling me stories about Sicily until the pain subsided. He didn't touch me. Didn't take advantage. Didn't do any of the things I'd learned to expect from alphas. He just cared. And when I looked up at him with tears streaming down my face, overwhelmed by his kindness, he wiped them away with such tenderness I could barely breathe. "You're safe with me, Elias. Always." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. Part 2. I woke up in silk sheets that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a bedroom that looked like something out of a magazine. Modern furniture, abstract art on the walls. Everything pristine and expensive and so far removed from my tiny studio apartment that I felt like I'd woken up in another world. The heat had broken. My body felt weak but human again. And Dante was asleep in the chair beside the bed. He'd stayed all night, watching over me. His suit jacket was draped over the armrest, his tie loosened, dark circles under his eyes from exhaustion. Even in sleep, he looked alert, like some part of him was always ready for trouble. I should have left. Should have slipped out before he woke up. Should have protected what was left of my dignity. But I couldn't stop staring at him. This powerful, terrifying alpha had spent the entire night taking care of me. No expectations, no demands, just kindness. When his eyes opened and found mine, something passed between us, something electric and inevitable and absolutely terrifying. "How do you feel?" His voice was rough from sleep. "Better, thanks to you." He sat forward, elbows on his knees, studying me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "I need to tell you something, Elias." My heart hammered. "Okay, I'm not a good man. The things I do, the world I live in, it's not safe. It's not normal. And you deserve better than anything I could offer you." "Then why are you telling me this?" "Because despite knowing all of that, despite knowing I should walk away and let you live your life," he reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek with heartbreaking gentleness. "I can't stop thinking about you." I leaned into his touch, every logical thought in my head screaming at me to run. "I can't stop thinking about you either." His thumb traced my lower lip. "This is a mistake. Probably you should tell me to leave." "I know. Elias. Kiss me, Dante, and he did. We were inseparable after that. Dante would pick me up after my shifts, taking me to hole-in-the-wall restaurants where nobody knew his name. We'd walk along the lake shore at midnight, his jacket around my shoulders. Talking until the sun came up, he told me about his father's empire. How he'd inherited a legacy of power and violence at 23. How he'd spent the last 7 years trying to legitimize the family business, moving away from the darker aspects while still maintaining control. Sometimes I wonder who I'd be if I'd had a choice, he admitted one night, his head in my lap as we sat in his penthouse. If I could have been someone normal, someone worthy of you. You are worthy of me. You don't know the things I've done, Elias. The decisions I've had to make. I ran my fingers through his hair, feeling his alpha energy settle under my touch. I know you're more than your worst moments. I know you're trying to be better. That's what matters. He looked up at me with such raw emotion it made my chest ache. I'm falling in love with you. My breath caught. Dante, I know it's too soon. I know I have no right. But I need you to know that you're not just some fling to me. You're everything. Tears blurred my vision. I'm falling in love with you too. He pulled me down into a kiss that tasted like promises and hope and dangerous dreams. It happened during my next heat cycle. Dante had prepared everything. Suppressants, if I wanted them. A private doctor on call. Food and water and anything I could possibly need. I won't touch you unless you ask, he promised, even as his alpha instincts clearly screamed at him to claim me. Your choice, Elias. Always your choice. But I didn't want suppressants this time. I wanted him. Make me yours, I whispered against his lips. Please, Dante, I want this. I want you. What happened next was everything I dreamed of, and more. He was gentle when I needed gentle, passionate when I needed passion, protective and possessive and perfect. He marked me as his Omega, his teeth on my neck, his scent mixing with mine until we were completely intertwined. And when it was over, when we lay tangled together in his massive bed, he held me like I was the most precious thing in his world. Mine, he murmured against my hair. My Omega, my Elias. Yours, I agreed, already half asleep. Always yours. I meant it. God, I meant every word. But fairy tales don't last forever. The first sign of trouble came when Dante started canceling our dates. Business, he'd say. Family obligations. Important meetings he couldn't avoid. I understood. I knew his world was complicated. But the canceled dates turned into missed calls. Missed calls turned into days without seeing him. And days turned into a week of complete silence when he finally showed up at my apartment. He looked exhausted, stressed, like the weight of the world had settled on his shoulders. I need to tell you something, he said, and my stomach dropped at his tone. What's wrong? He took a deep breath. My father made a deal before he passed away. An alliance with another powerful family. And part of that alliance? No. You're engaged, I finished, my voice hollow. It's not like that. Are you engaged or not, Dante? His silence was answer enough. I felt something shatter inside my chest. Get out, Elias, please. Get out. He left. And he took my heart with him. I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks later. Standing in my tiny bathroom, staring at 2 pink lines on a drugstore test. My entire world tilted sideways. I was carrying Dante Vittorio's baby. The man I loved. The man who was engaged to someone else. The man whose world was too dangerous for someone like me. I had 2 choices. Tell him and complicate his already complicated life, or disappear and raise this child alone. I chose to disappear. Because even though my heart was broken, even though I loved him more than breathing, I couldn't trap him with an unplanned pregnancy. Couldn't force him to choose between duty and us, so I quit my jobs. Found a new apartment across town, changed my number, and tried to forget the only alpha I'd ever loved. Which brings me back to this moment. Standing in this cathedral, watching him marry her, feeling our baby move inside me for the very first time. I pressed my hand against my bump, tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry, little one," I whispered. "I'm so sorry your papa doesn't know you exist." The officiant's voice echoed through the cathedral. "If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." And that's when it happened. That's when Dante's eyes found mine across the crowded room. Recognition, shock, and something else. Something that looked like hope and devastation all mixed together. He took a step toward me. I took a step back, and my vision started to blur. Part 3. The world tilted. One moment I was staring into Dante's eyes across that cathedral, seeing the exact moment he registered my presence. The next moment, the floor was rushing up to meet me. I heard someone scream, felt hands trying to catch me. But everything was spinning, my vision darkening at the edges like a tunnel closing in. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Dante running toward me, his face twisted in panic, the bride forgotten at the altar. And then, nothing. The first thing I registered was the smell of antiseptic, hospital. The second thing was the steady beep of monitors beside me. The third thing was the warm hand holding mine. Elias, that voice, deep and rough and achingly familiar. I forced my eyes open, and there he was. Dante Vittorio, still in his wedding suit, looking absolutely wrecked. His hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. His tie was gone. And those gray eyes, they were filled with tears. "The baby," I gasped, my free hand flying to my stomach. "Is the baby?" "The baby's fine," he said quickly, his thumb stroking over my knuckles. "You're both fine. You fainted from dehydration and stress, but the doctor says everything looks good." Relief flooded through me so intensely I started crying. "Hey, hey!" Dante leaned forward, his other hand cupping my face. "You're okay. I've got you. You're safe. Your wedding." I choked out. "You should be." "There is no wedding." I blinked at him through my tears. "What?" I stopped it. "The moment I saw you fall, nothing else mattered. Not the alliance. Not the guests. Not anything except getting to you. Dante, you're pregnant." His voice cracked on the word, his eyes dropping to where my hand rested on my bump. "You're carrying my child, and you didn't tell me." The accusation in his tone made me flinch. I couldn't, or wouldn't. "You were engaged." I pulled my hand from his grip, anger giving me strength despite my exhaustion. What was I supposed to do? Show up at your door and ruin your life? Trap you into choosing between duty and my family? He stood abruptly, pacing the small hospital room like a caged animal, between some arranged marriage and the Omega I love. The Omega carrying my child. "You don't love me anymore," I whispered. I left. He spun to face me, and the raw emotion on his face took my breath away. "I left to protect you. What are you talking about?" Dante ran both hands through his hair, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. "When my father died, he left behind debts. Not financial ones, those I could handle, but promises. Alliances that kept our family safe from rivals who would happily watch us burn." He sat back down, but kept his distance this time, like he didn't trust himself to touch me. "The Castellano family offered to honor one of those alliances: protection, territory, peace. But only if I married their daughter." My heart clenched. "So you said yes." "I said yes because 3 weeks before that offer came through, someone tried to hurt you." I froze. What? You didn't know because I made sure you didn't know. Someone followed you home from work. One of my rivals thought they could get to me through you. His hands clenched into fists. My men stopped them, but Elias, if anything had happened to you because of me, because of my world, so you left me to keep me safe, I finished. Understanding dawning. I thought if I cut ties, if I married into another family, you'd be protected. You could live your life without looking over your shoulder, without worrying that loving me would get you hurt or worse. Tears streamed down my face. You idiot. I know. You absolute, noble, self-sacrificing idiot. I know, he repeated, his voice rough. But when I saw you today, when I saw you pregnant with my child and realized what I'd thrown away, he looked at me with such intensity I felt it in my bones. I can't do this without you, Elias. I can't marry her. I can't pretend you don't exist. I can't. Breathe, I interrupted gently. Just breathe. He did, his chest rising and falling as he tried to compose himself. How long have you known? He asked finally. About the pregnancy. 3 months. 3 months. He said it like he was testing the weight of those words. You've been dealing with this alone for 3 months. I'm used to being alone. Well, you're not alone anymore. He stood, moving to the side of the bed with purpose. I don't care about the alliance. I don't care about the Castellanos. I don't care about anything except you and our child. Dante, you can't just... Watch me, he took my hand again, this time bringing it to his lips and pressing a kiss to my knuckles. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to handle the Castellanos, renegotiate the alliance, do whatever it takes to make this right. But I need you to know something first. What? I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 single second. Leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done, and marrying anyone else would have destroyed me. My breath hitched. Dante, that baby you're carrying. That's not some mistake or complication. That's our child, our future. And I will move heaven and earth to make sure you both have everything you deserve. I don't need heaven and earth, I whispered. I just need you. He leaned down, pressing his forehead to mine. You have me. You've always had me. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out what really mattered. We wasted so much time. Then let's not waste any more. He kissed me then, gentle and reverent, tasting like salt from both our tears. It was a promise. A beginning, a second chance neither of us thought we'd get. When he pulled back, his hand moved to rest on my bump, his expression full of wonder. Can I? I nodded, guiding his hand to where our baby was nestled safe inside me. We sat there in silence for a long moment, his palm warm against my stomach, both of us trying to process everything that had just happened. Boy or girl? He asked softly. I don't know yet. Does it matter? Not even a little bit. He smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from him in months. As long as they have your eyes, and your stubbornness. He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound filled my heart with hope. Maybe we could do this. Maybe love really was enough. Maybe. The door burst open. A woman in a wedding dress stood in the doorway, her face twisted with rage. The bride. And she was not happy. Part 4. Isabella Castellano was beautiful. Objectively, devastatingly beautiful in a way that made my chest tight with insecurity. Perfect makeup. Designer wedding dress that probably cost more than I'd make in a year. The kind of alpha female who commanded attention just by existing. And right now, all that attention was focused on me with the intensity of a laser. So this is him, she said, her voice cold as ice. This is the reason you humiliated me in front of 300 guests. Dante moved immediately, positioning himself between us. Isabella, don't. She held up one perfectly manicured hand. "Don't you dare tell me to calm down, Dante. You left me at the altar." "At the altar? Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I'm sorry," he said, and he actually sounded sincere. "You didn't deserve that. But I couldn't go through with it." "Because of him?" She looked past Dante to me, her eyes narrowing. "Because of some random Omega who shows up pregnant and suddenly you forget 7 months of planning. 7 months of alliance negotiations. 7 months of—" "I never forgot him," Dante interrupted quietly. "Not for 1 second of those 7 months." The room fell silent. Isabella's composure cracked, just slightly. "You told me you loved me. I told you I respected you. I told you I would be a good husband. But I never told you I loved you, Isabella, because that would have been a lie." She flinched like he'd struck her. I felt a surge of sympathy, despite everything. She was a victim in this too. Promised a marriage that her groom never wanted. Humiliated in front of everyone who mattered in their world. "Isabella," I said softly, and both of them turned to look at me. "I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I tried to stay away. I tried to let you have your wedding, your life with him. But you're pregnant." Her eyes dropped to my bump, and something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe. Or recognition of a complication she couldn't compete with. "How far along?" For months, she did the math quickly. "So you were pregnant when the engagement was announced?" "I didn't know," I admitted. "Not at first. And when I found out, I chose to disappear rather than complicate things. I only came today too." I paused, realizing how pathetic it sounded. "To say goodbye." "To say goodbye," she repeated slowly. Then she looked at Dante. "And you? When did you find out?" "Today, when he collapsed." Isabella laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course you didn't know. Because if you had known, you would have called off the engagement immediately." "Yes," Dante said simply. "Because you love him. Yes, more than the alliance. More than your family's safety. More than everything we could have built together." Dante's jaw clenched. "I will find another way to secure the alliance. I will give your family whatever they need. But I can't marry you, Isabella. It wouldn't be fair to either of us." Isabella was quiet for a long moment, studying both of us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Finally, she sighed. "My father is going to lose his mind." "I'll handle your father," Dante assured her. "No." She shook her head. "You won't. Because I'm going to handle him." We both stared at her. "What?" Dante asked carefully. Isabella smoothed down her wedding dress with deliberate precision. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to tell my father that I called off the wedding. That I realized I deserved better than a man who was clearly in love with someone else. Isabella, I'm not doing this for you." She cut him off sharply. "I'm doing this for me. Because the last thing I want is to be married to someone who looks at another person the way you look at him. I deserve better than being someone's second choice." She was right. She did deserve better. "The alliance," Dante started, but she waved him off. "The alliance will need to be renegotiated. Territory adjustments. Financial compensation. And you're going to owe me several favors that I will absolutely collect on in the future." "Anything," Dante agreed immediately. Isabella's gaze shifted to me. I fought the urge to shrink back under that penetrating stare. "You, what's your name?" "Elias Reed." "Elias Reed," she repeated. "You realize what you're getting into. His world isn't easy. It's not safe. There will always be people trying to use you against him. Always threats. Always danger." "I know," I said quietly. "And you're willing to raise a child in that environment?" I looked at Dante, then back at her. "I'm willing to try." With him, something in her expression softened. He's lucky to have you. Make sure he knows it. I will." She turned back to Dante. "I'm serious about those favors, Vittorio. You're going to help me find someone who actually wants to marry me. Someone who looks at me the way you look at him." A small smile tugged at Dante's lips. "Deal good." Isabella adjusted her veil one last time. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go tell 300 guests that the wedding is off and somehow maintain my dignity in the process." She headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Elias." "Yes. Congratulations on the baby. I hope it has your eyes and not his stubborn disposition." And then she was gone, leaving behind the faint scent of expensive perfume and the echo of her heels clicking down the hospital corridor. The moment the door closed, Dante exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. "That went better than expected," I said weakly. He turned to me with an expression somewhere between relief and disbelief. "She's terrifying. She's heartbroken. I know." He sat back down beside me, taking my hand. "I never wanted to hurt her, or you, or anyone. I just wanted, what? A normal life. Where I could love who I want without political complications. Where our child could grow up without bodyguards and security protocols. Where you could look at me without fear." I squeezed his hand. "I don't fear you, Dante. I never have. You should. My world is exactly as dangerous as Isabella said. Maybe more so. Then we'll be careful. We'll be smart. We'll protect our family." "Our family," he repeated softly, like he was testing the words. I liked the sound of that. "Me too." He leaned down and kissed me again, slower this time. Sweeter. Like we had all the time in the world instead of a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and a future full of complications. When he pulled back, his hand found my bump again, that look of wonder returning to his face. "I can't believe there's a tiny person in there. Half you, half me. Probably going to have your attitude." "God help us both," he said, but he was smiling. For the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. A soft knock interrupted our moment. "Come in," Dante called. A doctor entered, middle-aged, kind eyes, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Vittorio, Mr. Reed. How are we feeling?" "Better," I answered. "Good. I wanted to go over your test results and make sure everything looks healthy moving forward." She glanced at her notes. The fainting episode was caused by a combination of dehydration, low blood sugar, and stress. All understandable given the circumstances. Dante's hand tightened on mine guiltily. "The baby is perfectly healthy," the doctor continued with a reassuring smile. "Strong heartbeat, good growth measurements. But I do want to stress the importance of reducing stress, staying hydrated, and eating regular meals. This is a critical stage of development. He'll have everything he needs," Dante said firmly. "Whatever it takes," the doctor smiled. "I'm glad to hear it. Now, do you have any questions? When can I take him home?" Dante asked. "We'd like to monitor you both for a few more hours," she told me. "But assuming everything stays stable, you should be able to go home this evening." Home. The word caught in my throat. I didn't even know where home was anymore. My tiny apartment. Dante's penthouse. "He's coming home with me," Dante said, reading my thoughts. "If that's okay with you, Elias?" I looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd left to protect me, who'd stopped his own wedding to be with me, who was looking at me like I was his entire world. "Yeah," I whispered. "That's okay with me." The doctor made a few more notes, gave us instructions for follow-up appointments, and left us alone again. Dante settled into the chair beside my bed, his hand never leaving mine. "Get some rest," he murmured. "I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise. I'm done running, Elias. From now on, wherever you are, that's where I am too." I believed him. And as I drifted off to sleep with his hand in mine and our baby safe between us, I let myself imagine a future I'd thought was impossible. A future with him. A future with our family. A future where love was enough. Part 5. Dante's penthouse looked different this time. Last time I'd been here, I was running from my heat, vulnerable and scared. Now I was walking in with my hand in his, our baby growing between us, and an actual future ahead of us instead of just stolen moments. I know it's not much, he started, and I actually laughed. Dante, this place has a view of the entire city and probably costs more than I'll make in my lifetime. It's not much. He had the grace to look sheepish. I meant, it's not a home. Not yet. But we can change that. However you want to decorate, whatever you need, it's yours. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Chicago spread beneath us like a glittering promise. It's perfect. His arms wrapped around me from behind, one hand settling protectively over my bump. You're perfect. I'm a mess, I corrected, leaning back against his chest. I'm 4 months pregnant, unemployed, standing in a penthouse I have no idea how to navigate. Then we'll figure it out together. He pressed a kiss to my temple. Besides, you're not unemployed. You're growing our child. That's the most important job in the world. He'd prepared everything. The guest room had been converted into a nursery. Soft gray walls, white furniture, a crib that looked like it cost more than my old car. There were books on pregnancy stacked on the nightstand. Prenatal vitamins, comfortable pillows. When did you do all this? I breathed, running my hand over the crib railing. I didn't. I had people do it while we were at the hospital. He looked almost nervous. Is it okay? I can change anything you don't like. I just wanted you to feel comfortable, and I read that pregnant omegas need specific support. And I cut him off with a kiss. It's perfect, I whispered against his lips. You're perfect. I'm really not, he said, but he was smiling. That night, we lay in his bed, our bed now, and talked until the sun started to rise. About baby names and nursery colors and whether our child would have his eyes or mine. About the future and the past and everything in between. I'm scared, I admitted in the quiet darkness. Of what? Of not being enough. Of being a bad parent. Of our child growing up in danger because of who you are. Dante pulled me closer, his hand splayed protectively over my stomach. I'm scared too. Terrified, actually. But we're going to figure it out together. And our child is going to be so loved, Elias. So protected. So wanted. You really think we can do this? I know we can. He tilted my chin up, so I had to look at him. You're the strongest person I've ever met. You survive things that would break most people. You're going to be an amazing parent. Tears pricked my eyes. You really believe that? With everything I am, the Castellano situation resolved itself better than expected. Isabella, true to her word, handled her father. Dante renegotiated the alliance with territory concessions and financial agreements that kept everyone happy. And somehow, miraculously, we came out of it intact. Isabella sent you something, Dante said one morning, handing me a beautifully wrapped package. Inside was a baby blanket, soft, expensive, embroidered with tiny stars. The note read, "For the baby who changed everything. May they be blessed with their papa's courage and their father's strength." Isabella, I held the blanket to my chest, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness. She's a good person, I said. She is, Dante agreed. And she deserves to find someone who loves her the way I love you. You think she will? I know she will. Women like Isabella don't stay single long. He pulled me into his arms. But I don't want to talk about Isabella right now. No? What do you want to talk about? This, he dropped to one knee. My breath caught. Dante, I know we're doing everything backwards, he said, pulling out a small velvet box. I know I should have asked you on a proper date, should have courted you correctly, should have done 100 things differently. But Elias Reed, I am completely and hopelessly in love with you. You're my Omega, the parent of my child, and the best thing that ever happened to me. Will you marry me? The ring was beautiful, simple, elegant, perfect. But more than that, it represented everything I'd ever wanted and never thought I'd have. Yes, I whispered through my tears. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger and kissed me like his life depended on it. And maybe it did. Because we depended on each other now, our daughter came into the world screaming. Lucia Maria Vittorio, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect tiny fingers and toes. Dante's gray eyes and my nose. The most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. She's perfect, Dante breathed, cradling her against his chest with a gentleness that made my heart ache. Elias, she's absolutely perfect. I watched my alpha, this powerful, dangerous man, completely fall apart over our tiny daughter. And I knew everything we'd been through was worth it. Every tear, every heartbreak, every moment of fear. All of it led to this. Welcome to the world, little one, I whispered, running my finger over her soft cheek. Your dads love you so much. Dante looked at me with tears streaming down his face. Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to show up at that wedding, for giving me a second chance. For this perfect, beautiful gift. He gestured to our daughter. For everything. You don't have to thank me, I said softly. We're family. That's what family does. Family, he repeated and smiled. I like the sound of that. We got married on a beach in Sicily. Small ceremony. Just close friends and family. Isabella came with her new fiancé, a kind-eyed alpha who looked at her like she hung the moon. She held Lucia during the ceremony, making funny faces to keep her quiet. When Dante and I exchanged vows, I thought about everything that brought us to this moment. The night we met. Our stolen 3 months. The heartbreak of separation. The collapse at his wedding. The moment he chose us over duty. Every single second led us here. I love you, Dante said, slipping a wedding band onto my finger. In this life and every life after. You and Lucia are my world. I love you too, I whispered back. Thank you for running toward me when I fell. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for being the alpha I always needed. When we kissed, our daughter squealed happily from Isabella's arms, and everyone laughed. It was perfect. Messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. People ask me sometimes if I regret going to that wedding. If I regret collapsing in front of 300 people and turning Dante's life upside down, the answer is simple. Not for one single second. Because that moment, that terrifying, embarrassing, devastating moment when I fainted holding my baby bump, was the moment that changed everything. It brought Dante back to me. It gave Lucia her father. It gave us our family, and now, watching Dante read bedtime stories to our daughter in her nursery. Seeing him press gentle kisses to her forehead. Hearing her call him Papa in her tiny voice, I know that love is worth fighting for. Even when it's messy. Even when it's complicated. Even when you have to collapse at your baby daddy's wedding to make it happen. Our story isn't a fairy tale. It's better. It's real. And it's ours. Thank you for reading our story. May you find the courage to fight for your own happy ending, no matter how impossible it seems.